You notice it slowly at first, the way someone notices a hum in a room only after the refrigerator turns off. The world you move through so easily, its noise, its routines, its expectations, begins to feel strangely distant. You sit among people you've known for years, listening to their chatter about errands and grievances, and something in you steps back. It isn't disdain. It isn't pride. It's a quiet awareness that you no longer live in the same place they do, even while sharing the same table. You watch the way conversations circle the same complaints, the way everyone rushes to fill silence as if it were a threat, not a doorway. The television blares in the corner of a waiting room, phones glow in the hands of strangers. Everyone seems tethered to something you can no longer touch. You find yourself breathing differently, slow, steady, careful, as if guarding a flame you're not sure how to explain. You walk through a grocery store and feel the fluorescent lights pressing down on you. The carts clatter, the announcements drone overhead, and yet none of it feels real. It all feels like a set built hastily for a play you're no longer acting in. You push your cart, nod politely, reach for the bread. Your awareness sits a few inches behind your body, watching the motions with a kind of tired tenderness. You're not angry. You're not above it all. You're simply no longer immersed in the dream everyone else is still dreaming. This is the disconnection that follows waking up. Not rejection, recognition. You begin to see the currents beneath every word, the fear beneath the business, the longing behind the constant need for distraction. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The bright surfaces lose their charm. The noise loses its authority. What once felt normal now feels loud, and what once felt empty now feels sacred. You start slipping away from conversations that never touch anything real. You find yourself stepping outside during gatherings, standing alone on a porch, letting the night air steady you. Out there, only the hum of distant traffic and the shape of trees against the sky. You feel something true, something the crowded room couldn't offer. It isn't loneliness, not really. It's the first honest moment after a long performance. A gentle realization settling into your chest. You're waking up, and the world you knew is still asleep. And in that stillness you take a deeper breath, your first real breath in years. There is a particular ache that comes when you finally begin to see clearly. Not a sharp pain, not a dramatic wound. Just a slow, steady heaviness that settles in the chest. You try to speak from this new clarity, gently, carefully, hoping someone might hear the quiet truth beneath your words. But the room keeps moving around you. People nod, respond with familiar phrases, return to their stories. And you feel it again, that small collapse inside, the recognition that you were not really heard, not really met. It is a strange kind of grief. You aren't mourning a person. You're mourning the distance that grows when your vision shifts and theirs stays the same. You sit at a family table, offering fewer words now, watching the way conversations skim the surface like stones skipping across water. You want to reach deeper. You want to touch the stillness beneath the ripples. But you know they aren't ready, and so you withdraw inward, not out of judgment, out of mercy for everyone involved. Seeing becomes a quiet burden. You notice the strain in someone's smile long before they admit it. You hear the fear behind a joke. You sense the loneliness in someone's boasting. And this knowing makes you tender, but it also makes you tired. There is no easy way to explain what you perceive, no soft way to hand someone the mirror you carry. So you hold it close instead, letting it fog slightly with your own breath, letting the image blur, so you don't overwhelm the ones you love. You try, sometimes, to bridge the gap. You offer a thought that comes from the deeper place in you. But it lands strangely in the room, as if spoken in a language no one recognizes anymore. A hush follows, not hostile, just empty. And in that silence, you understand that clarity can be isolating. Not because others reject you, because they cannot follow what you now see without losing the ground beneath their feet. So you step back again. You become quieter, steadier, less invested in being understood. There is longing there, yes, a wish for one moment of recognition, one glance that says, "I see it too." But even without it, you continue, because the path has already opened, and your feet keep moving of their own accord. We know this truth, you and I. The more awake you are, the fewer stay beside you. There comes a moment when the fog around you thins, not all at once, but in slow dissolving strands. It happens quietly, the way morning light gradually reveals the shape of a room. You begin to see the small mechanisms behind people's words, the hesitation, the half-truth, hope that no one notices the fracture beneath the smile. You see your own movements too, the old habits of pretending, the rehearsed responses meant to keep the peace. And with each layer that falls away, something inside you settles, even as something else begins to stand apart. Clarity doesn't announce itself. It arrives like clean air after a storm, sharper, cooler, revealing edges you never noticed before. You look at a familiar situation, an argument, a routine, a pattern, and suddenly its structure is visible, the gears turning, the motivations hidden beneath gestures. Nothing mystical, nothing grand, just the simple, unfiltered truth of how things actually are. And once you see it, your relationship to the moment shifts. You are no longer fully inside it. You are watching, aware, steady. This distance is not chosen. It unfolds naturally, like water pulling back to reveal the river. The more clearly you perceive, the less easily you can merge with what is false. Performances become transparent. Noise loses its spell. Conversations built on distraction feel weightless in your hands. You find yourself standing at the edge of gatherings, understanding every movement, every projection, while feeling strangely untouched by any of it. It is not superiority. It is simply alignment. Your perception adjusting to what is real, the way the eye adjusts to bright sky after leaving a dim room. At first, the light feels harsh. The details almost hurt. But over time, the brightness becomes normal, and the dimness you came from feels unreal. This is the quiet exile of awareness. You see too clearly to return to the fog, yet the clarity itself has no built-in company. You notice the silence inside you growing wider. You notice how still water reflects everything without distortion, and how few people can look into such reflection without flinching. The more truthful the mirror becomes, the more carefully others avoid it, not out of malice, out of instinct. Illusion doesn't flourish under bright attention, and so solitude forms around you, not as punishment but as consequence, a natural perimeter shaped by perception itself. You walk through your days with a clean, unobtrusive honesty, knowing the cost, accepting it without drama. The pain is real, but it is the pain of clarity, not the pain of loss. In the end, the mechanism is simple. When the fog lifts, the landscape changes. When the landscape changes, so do you. There comes a day when the exhaustion begins to loosen its grip, not loudly, not with some grand revelation, more like the way a room feels different after someone quietly opens a window. You notice the air is easier to breathe. You notice your shoulders sit lower. You notice that the stillness you've been carrying, once mistaken for loneliness, has a shape, a weight, quiet dignity of its own. You sit at your kitchen table in the early morning, hands wrapped around a warm cup, and realize you're not waiting for anything, not waiting to be understood, not waiting to be validated, not waiting for the world to grow softer or quieter or wiser. Your breath settles on its own, a small rise, a small fall, and you feel it, the strange relief of not performing. There was a time when your silence felt like distance. Now it feels like home, a gentle pause between the noise of the world and the steadiness of your own presence. You don't withdraw out of disappointment anymore. You withdraw because the stillness nourishes you, because in the quiet you remember yourself without distortion. People may call this apathy, but you know better. Apathy is numbness, a kind of shrinking. What you are feeling is spaciousness, a widening of perception that no longer depends on reaction. You're not less engaged, you're simply less entangled. You can listen without absorbing. You can watch without losing yourself. You can care without collapsing. There is even a small, surprising humor in it, this freedom from the old urgency. You catch yourself smiling at the way you once rushed to fix things, rush to soothe people, rush to explain what you now see they never had the ears to hear. The irony is kind, not bitter. You were doing your best. They were too. Now your best looks different. It looks like patience. It looks like breathing before responding. It looks like stepping back and letting life come to you, instead of chasing it down hallways where you never belong. You move slower now, but not out of hesitation, out of self-trust. The world can spin as it wishes. You no longer feel compelled to match its speed. Your stillness is not proof of disinterest. It is proof of alignment. A calm center that doesn't need applause, doesn't need understanding, doesn't need noise to confirm its own pulse. You sit there a little longer, watching light shift across the room, noticing how it moves without asking permission, and something in you mirrors it, unhurried, whole, quietly certain. A long breath leaves your body, steady and complete. You are here, you are enough, and for the first time that feels like peace. There is a kind of silence that arrives only after you stop trying to correct the world. Not a forced quiet, not the stillness of retreat, but a natural spaciousness that grows when you no longer feel compelled to react to every flicker around you. You sit inside this new quiet the way you might sit in a room where a television plays with the volume turned all the way down. Images moving, gestures unfolding, but none of it hooking into you. You see everything, but the old urgency has dissolved. You walk through your day with the same clarity. Someone raises their voice, someone performs their familiar drama, someone invites you into their storm, and you feel the old instinct to respond rise, then loosen, then fall away. Not apathy, not withdrawal, just the recognition that most of life's agitation is a kind of theater, and you no longer mistake the performance for reality. You see, and you do not react. You hear, and you do not absorb. You feel, and you do not cling. This is the wisdom of silence. Not muteness, not suppression, but an inner atmosphere wide enough for everything to pass through without leaving a mark. Like a forest that holds its shape even when footsteps echo through it. Like a bird that crosses an enormous sky without needing the sky to change for its sake. You start to notice how often people respond to shadows rather than substance. How arguments grow from misunderstandings no one pauses long enough to examine. How much noise is created by people trying to control what was never theirs to manage. And from your still vantage point, the whole thing begins to look strangely gentle, even a little absurd. Not foolish, just human. Everyone tangled in their own reactions, believing them to be truth. Your silence becomes a kind of soft intelligence. It doesn't avoid life, it simply doesn't interfere with it. You speak when the words come clean. You move when the moment is ready. You let situations unfold without pushing them toward an outcome. And often, without your effort, they dissolve on their own. It feels almost miraculous at times, the way clarity renders struggle unnecessary, the way non-interference reveals the natural order that was always there beneath the noise. You realize that life is not actually asking for your constant participation. It is asking for your presence. A presence unburdened by reaction, unclouded by fear. And so you stand quietly in your own awareness, watching the world spin without demanding that you spin with it. A thought arrives, soft and weightless, settling into you like a bell struck gently in an empty room. When you stop reacting, life speaks in its true voice. There comes a point when the sharp edges of seeing begin to soften. After the solitude, after the stillness, another feeling returns. Quietly, almost shyly. Not the old urgency to help, not the impulse to correct, but something gentler. A recognition. A warmth that doesn't reach outward so much as it settles inward. We begin to look at others, still tangled in their routines and reflexes, and instead of frustration, we feel a kind of spacious compassion. It happens in small moments. You watch people rushing across a city street at night, each carrying a private worry, each believing their urgency is absolute. Their windows glow in the distance, tiny squares of light scattered across the dark. And from where we stand now, we see the tenderness in it. The way each person is trying, in their own limited way, to make life work. They aren't wrong. They're simply asleep to the deeper rhythm. and we remember that we were once moving in that same unexamined hurry. This memory softens us. It dissolves the last traces of superiority or irritation. We see the person arguing, and we no longer feel tempted to step in. We see the one repeating old stories of blame, and we no longer feel responsible for redirecting them. Their behavior no longer feels like something to fix, only something to understand. They are dreaming, as dreamers do, believing every shape in the dream to be real. And we, awake enough now to notice, learn to hold our clarity without using it as a weapon. We watch without intruding. We listen without absorbing. We stand near without collapsing into their storms. This is empathy stripped of effort, compassion without the desire to manage anyone's path. A candle seen through glass, warm, steady, present, but not burning itself out to reach the room. We start to understand that most people must move through their own seasons of confusion. Awakening cannot be rushed. Insight cannot be handed over. Each person opens in their own time, in their own way, when their own life loosens something inside them. And so we let life do its work, quietly, faithfully. What returns to us is a different kind of closeness. Not the closeness of agreement or shared belief, but the closeness of shared humanity. We see the beauty in people exactly as they are, not as we once wanted them to be. And in this soft, steady seeing, a subtle connection forms. Gentle, forced, quietly real. There is always a moment, often unnoticed, when the long journey inward becomes a simple standing still. Not triumph, not revelation, just the ease of no longer searching for what was never missing. Awakening begins with disorientation, moves through solitude, and settles here, in this quiet return to yourself. You rise one morning and notice the dawn light spilling through the window, soft and indifferent. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The world meets you gently because you are no longer pushing against it. You sit with your breath, slow and steady, feeling no need to shape it or deepen it or turn it into practice. It comes and goes on its own, like waves touching the shore without needing an audience. You are not reaching for meaning anymore. You are not arranging your thoughts into lessons. You are simply here, in the plain truth of your own presence, and that is enough. There is a window open somewhere in the room, perhaps literal, perhaps simply felt. And the air moves through without resistance. You realize that this is what you've become, open without effort, clear without strain. People may still misunderstand you. Life may still twist in unpredictable ways, but nothing in you tightens in response. You have lost the need to correct the world, and in doing so, you have rediscovered your place in it. You walk through your days with a light that doesn't shine outward so much as it permeates quietly from within. You do not advertise it. You do not defend it. Even your solitude feels different now, not a hiding place, but a natural home that welcomes you whenever you step inside. And when you return to others, you do so softly, without the old urgency to be seen or known. Their paths do not threaten yours. Their sleep does not diminish your wakefulness. This is not the high ground. This is not a victory. It is a resting point, the simple acceptance that awareness needs no explanation, no performance, no audience. Peace is not something you create. It is what remains when you stop interfering with your own life. You stand breathing the quiet morning air, and the sea inside you is calm. You have arrived where you have always been.